All right.
Great.
There we go. There's our cue.
Speaking of cues, cue the music!
Just cue the music!
Cue the music!
Oh, let's cue the music!
All right, coming to you live from the great indoors of New York City, I'm Brian Teo. Joining me today from Green Bay, Wisconsin is Kevin MacLeod.
Hello.
Together, we'd like to welcome you to Composerish, where we discuss issues facing modern working composers. Sometimes. Kevin, how are you today?
Today, you know what? Better than average. The weather is finally fine. Just everything's just getting better.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Fine weather in Wisconsin is like what?
Fine weather. It's like 20 degrees. It's really shit. It's like 70 degrees out.
You're not that close to Canada that you.
Well, 20 Celsius. Celsius.
No, I was joking. They use Celsius in Canada, don't they?
I don't know. It's a weird thing. They still use Fahrenheit at the doctor's office. I'm like, seriously?
What? Out of all the places, you'd think that they would use Celsius
Yeah.
there, but
They use they weigh me in kilograms, but my temperature is in Fahrenheit. I'm like, okie dokes.
oh, I feel like they're just trying to do that to appease America. They're like, all right, you guys are our southern border, so we'll just be polite and use your stupid measurements sometimes.
Right. Yeah. England's another one of those with stupid measurements on occasion.
Yeah, I mean they measure people in stones. I never really understood what that means.
Yeah.
Like, he's like 3 stone or whatever. I don't know if that's actually a reasonable measurement because I don't know what a stone is.
That would
but
be that would be very hard to find somebody who's 3 stone.
is that big?
No, 19 stone would be big.
Okay.
That
See, I
would
don't
be
know.
Big.
I mean, what happened? Did they find like a rock one time and they're like, all right, this is a stone.
Yep.
Like, and you can measure people in multiples of this exact rock.
Yeah, like put people on one side of the balance and you just throw stones on the other side until it balances
Yeah,
out.
and you're like, wow, dude, this guy is like 20 stone.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
That is, yep.
Or maybe crazy average. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually don't.
Reference.
I don't know. I think maybe 10 stone is good. Somebody's gonna write in and explain this.
You obviously should definitely contact us and let us know what this is because we could look it up,
Like,
but also I don't feel like it.
Why does stone make sense anymore?
I mean, and they could just fire back like, why do feet make sense? It's like, yeah, I mean, how many people have a foot that's actually the size of a foot?
Not 0.
Not 0, sure, but I mean, is that like a national average?
It seems like a lot. That'd be, I don't know what size shoe that would be. And that's another problem. You know what? We're getting diversion alert. Oh God.
Diversion alert! It'll be like we'll have to play the diversion alert backwards because we're only giving the alert after the rant is pretty much done.
Oh, sorry. Well, no, because we're not done. Because I got things to talk about with shoe sizes.
Okay, let's hear it.
Oh man. So normally, like when I go to get a shoe, they'll ask me, what size are you? And I will say 42. I am size 42 because a size 42 shoe will almost always fit. But that's
European
that's
size,
a
of
European
course.
sizing, which is different from American sizing because God knows how this works. In American sizes, I have some shoe brands, I wear a 6.5, and some shoe sizes I'm a 10.5. Some shoe brands.
What?
Oh yeah.
Does that have to do with width of shoe or what? There's I
nope.
mean, that's a huge difference.
It is a huge difference.
I mean, I oscillate. The smallest is probably 8.5, and that's kind of common. Depending on the shoe, I might go to 9. If they run really small, maybe 9.5, but that's rare.
Yeah.
But I've like 8.5 to 9 is usually like the sweet spot for my shoe size. I've never heard of anybody radically changing sizes that much between brands.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the 6.5 is the outlier, and that's some of my favorite walking shoes, but they're made by Prada, so I guess they just make shit up.
6.5 though.
Yeah, I wear 6.5 in Prada sneakers.
Is that like vanity sizing? Do you think they do that?
I don't. That makes no sense, right?
Yeah. Like, oh man, that person's foot is so small.
Yeah, like no, that's just how. And also, like, I have like super slim elf feet, whereas you have like super wide sort of hobbit feet.
I've got straight up hobbit feet.
Yeah.
They're really wide. They're like, I mean, almost like a frog foot. You can go paddle through some water with these.
Yeah. No, I can't do that. But
paddle through water with your elven feet. Yeah, I mean, you're just like whacking a bucket of water with a chopstick. It's like you're not going to really churn too much up.
But I can walk on top of snowdrifts, and that's cool. So that's great.
Well, because they're dainty, but if you weighed more, they would just sink right through.
Oh yeah, probably.
I do weigh more, but my wide feet allow me to also walk because they're like a snowshoe.
Oh, okay.
No, I would crunch right through.
Yeah, I actually can't go through. That was a joke.
Right, so we both lied.
We both. That's fine. I hope people have come to expect that.
I mean, you know what I haven't seen in stores in a very long time, and they used to have these everywhere, is those like metal foot measuring gauge things.
Oh, yeah.
Like I used to play with those whenever like my mother or sisters would go shoe shopping, and I was like a kid and I didn't care about any of that stuff. So you find one of those, and then you also have to like walk really slowly up to those slanted mirrors that they had underneath the benches, and then pretend that you were like on the wall or whatever, like whoa, and then that's what you got to do in a shoe store.
Oh, how many shoe stores are going to survive this? I don't know.
I don't think that there were a lot to begin with. It seems like shoe retail is.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a mall thing, right?
There's a lot of specialty shoe retail for like people with feet problems, which are a lot of people. Because gravity sucks.
Yeah, if you need to get like orthopedic shoes or like special work boots or something like that,
or just something with like okay, I need to do gardening, but let's be fair, the Crocs are not making it for my shoes. I need like some really fucking good arch support here.
And I'm actually surprised that bespoke shoe inserts are still so expensive. Like I got a really weird but actually kind of useful gift that I got one year from somebody was a gift certificate to get custom insoles made. And they basically went to this place. This guy just took a picture of my feet with his phone, or I think it was like an iPad.
Okay.
And then I waited, and then they sent me a 3D printed shoe insert.
Oh.
It took like about a week to break in, and then it was awesome. And then once it started to collapse, it was just absolutely terrible. It was like the worst thing ever. So it lasted maybe like a couple months.
Okay.
Then as like I tried to steal that idea and get my mother a pair of shoe inserts, and I couldn't find anybody that did 3D printing, but there were people that would mold it, and that cost like it was like $600 or something, which was crazy.
Yeah, it's like
and they would have to like make a form out of concrete.
Yeah. That's like getting Etymodic's ear inserts custom molded to your ears. It's really expensive. Shall we talk about composery things? Because I'm excited about this.
Oh, yeah. We haven't done this in a while. In fact, we've only done it once, but I think it's time to bring back this sample rate.
Sample Shootout.
Maybe we need a new theme then. Sample Shootout.
Sample Shootout.
It's actually basically going to be the same thing as a sample ramp, but there's going to be like a gun sound at the end, I think. Like the fake old Western gun sound with like the
Yep.
which is not what guns actually sound like.
Yeah,
I only found that out when I moved to Brooklyn. Dark. It's dark.
You're not wrong.
String libraries. There are a ton of string libraries out there, and it's really hard to do an eval of a whole string library because there are so many different articulations and settings for strings. But one issue that I've had is pizzicato samples.
Yeah.
I have a handful of string libraries, and I know you have a handful as well,
Yep.
to put it lightly. So I think today we'll compare a couple pizzicato samples.
We're going to go through about 15 different libraries.
We had two different musical samples. One was the Hall of the Mountain King, and then the other one is like this like 50s advertising sort of light music track. That's kind of more of like a poppy, jazzy style. But unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have time to be able to go through each and every single one. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the notes I have were from Hall of the Mountain King, and I'm rating them based on a full orchestra pizzicato string section. Does it sound like it should? And there's a few in here which are not full orchestra. I mean, they're great for what they are, but they're not for full orchestra. But you can listen to them, get an idea of what they are.
So I think what we'll do for the sake of this episode is we'll only go through the Hall of the Mountain King samples. All of the samples will be available, both the Hall of the Mountain King and what we call Spring Chicken, which is a track that I wrote for Free PD. If we end up referencing it, we might splice in clips here and there, but I think for the most part, we're going to leave that out. But all the samples will be available for review, so check the show notes for the link. The excerpt we chose features strings played at a quiet dynamic with occasional accents. To make this as fair as possible, the same MIDI clip was used for every library. Quiet notes were programmed with a velocity of 64, while accents had a velocity of 100. So it's not going to necessarily be the most natural performance because any composer would probably go in and push and pull notes here and there.
Oh, yeah.
But I think this is the fairest way to be able to evaluate the sections. Without further ado,
let's, the first one on the list I have is the Cinesamples CineStrings. This is just the ensemble thing. I did not part this one out. This is one MIDI track just playing on the whole thing, but I think it sounds pretty solid.
let's take a listen,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about it. So I actually thought this one sounded pretty good. It's realistic. I like that you can hear the attack on all the strings. The room sound is not imposing, but it's there to kind of fill it out. I thought it was all right.
Yep, this is $500, and you can definitely get a close dry thing out of it. That's a possibility, and it'll go on sale for like $250.
The one thing to note is I think in the poppier sort of situation, the Spring Chicken song, when the notes are playing really quickly and like it's really dense. Spring Chicken was chosen because all of the strings are DVC, so there's like double stops in every single voice, and they're really dense harmonies. And I think when in that situation, it starts to lack nuance and sound, and it gets really super saturated.
Oh,
like
yeah,
it just sounds like a block of sound. Like,
Right, because it's going to be doubling up the violas and the violins on everything where they can. Yeah, this one sounds really big, really fast, and you can part them individually, but I was a lazy jerk, and I did not part this one through.
next up is Cinesamples Solo.
Cinesamples Solo is basically one instrument per part. So instead of having a full 60-piece string orchestra, this is only 5.
Okay.
It's not going to sound big, and it gets a very low score, but I do like how it sounds.
All right. That's a really reasonable sound for solo strings.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds very woody, very organic. I really love how that sounds.
Are you able to dry those samples up at all, or is that like the room that they're thrown in?
No. That is the full mix with reverb. You can definitely dry it out way harder than that.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. The only thing I would think about is, like, I think in an ensemble setting, if you needed solo strings to break out from the ensemble, those would sound great. As is, for like a straight string quartet, they do sound a little far, but if you can dry them out, then, that'll have to be another shootout at some point, I think, like looking at different mic positions, but that would have been just way too much for this podcast.
Yeah.
It also sounds great. Like, I like the woodiness of those samples.
Right.
You can really get like the character of the instrument. The plucking on the 16th notes on the viola, I thought was actually fairly realistic as well.
Yeah.
It's a good use of round robin.
Next up, we got East West Hollywood Diamond or Hollywood Strings Diamond Edition. If you have Composer Cloud, I think this is included in that. Other than that, I think it's a $300 buy currently these days.
Is that $300? Wow, I spent so much money on that.
I spent like was it $1,200? It was $800. It was a lot when it came out, but it's pretty old now.
Each one of those libraries was like $1,000.
Yeah.
I think when I bought them, and I bought up like one, and then I'd like leave it on the shelf because I didn't have a computer fast enough to run it, and I'd wait like a month or two, and then I'd buy another one like on my credit card. And when I finally got all of them, they sounded old. and it was like, a couple months later they came out with Composer Cloud, and I was like, oh man, come on.
Composer Cloud, they are getting cheaper. So I haven't seen it less than $300, but I haven't been looking because I already have it. Let's take a listen. Pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So I have a bias against Hollywood strings, so my review might not be as glowing.
No, that's why we need it.
I started looking for other string ensembles because I was getting sick of specifically the pizzicato sound in Hollywood strings. That is still a major part of my template just because I've set up everything around it. But to me, it sounds a little bit distant.
Yeah.
And the decay on the string samples is a little on the short side. Like it cuts off almost, I think, a little bit too fast, and it sounds kind of synthetic. And I think there's a lot of room on it. And even I happen to know this with working with this library, that even if you use like the super close mics, there's still a lot of room sound, so you can't use it in a pop context. And this is kind of where the Spring Chicken sample comes in handy. maybe we should listen to a little bit of that just so you can kind of get an idea.
Sure.
So in that situation, when it's so dense and it's a lot faster, I think the synthetic quality of the strings starts to become more apparent.
Yeah, there's and out of all the libraries, this is definitely the most quiet one out of the box.
Oh yeah, I had to actually drop a gain on my bus in order to boost them. Like across the board, all the strings in general, I have to boost by like 15 dB to get them reasonable.
Jiminy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then I have to, then I can actually like work with the volume slider to pull it to where I need it to be and, change with velocity. But there are so many things that are just so incredibly quiet that like it's impossible to use otherwise.
Yeah. And this one in particular on the high end does not have an aggressive tone to it. It just never gets aggressive. Even at high velocities.
I think that's one of the things that bothered me about trying to use it in a pop context, or if you're trying to use it to score cartoons, is sometimes you really need that plinky, like more of that finger sound, like that attack on the string. And this is like a much more soft, rounded tone, which works in some situations. Mm-hmm. But I think like other times, like if I need a pizzicato, it's because I need that explosive, really short, punchy sound. And I just don't think this can get there.
Yep. The next one up, it's the Logic Pizzicato String Ensemble. And I'm going to say this is the most surprising one that I've heard out of all of these.
I agree.
I'm like, I did not expect the Logic bass instrument to sound like this.
Yeah, that is incredibly reasonable, especially as for being a stock library that you probably already have if you use Logic.
Yeah. It's just included for free. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay.
And this has the more of that sense of attack. I actually wrote down in my notes, cartoony in a good way.
Yeah.
Like it's not terrible. I think there's a lot of times where I need punch and sound, and this would absolutely get there. The one thing that I noted was that the samples are panned pretty hard. I don't know if you did that or if that is
Nope.
just stock.
That is stock. That's what happens when you load in the MIDI files.
Yeah, so the basses and cellos are very much in the right channel, and the violins are very much in the left channel. I'm assuming the violas, which are a little bit harder to hear in the mix, are somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's something that maybe you would have to like work with because it just pans so hard that it's a little synthetic.
Yeah.
And I think that it could benefit from a little bit of room modeling. The difference between velocity in each of the accents and the piano sections is not very high. So that might be good because I guess it's only like really like a range of about 40 velocities. What's the word for that? Velocity ticks?
Sure. Yeah.
Like between 64 and 100, which is the edges of our velocity range. That's not a lot. So maybe if like you bumped up the accents a little bit higher, bumped the piano sections down a little bit lower, you might hear a little bit more of those accents.
Right.
But
so yeah, again, none of these are optimized. These are one MIDI thing thrown into every one of these things. So
right. And everyone knows that every sample library needs like a little care and attention.
Right. You can make every one of these better. No question.
Agreed.
Except for maybe this one. Next one.
This was unfair though. Okay, so
this isn't fair.
So the next one is the Majestica Bartok pits. And one of the when I saw this in the samples that you had sent of your libraries, I was like, most of the libraries that we used have Bartok pizzicato samples in them.
Yes.
And we didn't use it. It's like Hollywood for sure. I'm guessing Cinesamples probably.
Absolutely. Spitfire, yep. However, there is no normal pits in Majestica because screw you, that's why. Because Majestica is for big, 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 loud music. And so Majestica, how much does this thing cost? $600 for the full orchestra.
Wow.
It's for the full orchestra. It's for all the brass, all the winds, all the strings, all the percussion. They're all big.
But that's how much you would spend to get an ensemble that's more flexible.
Yeah, no, this is not, Majestica is not flexible. If you keep trying to turn it up to 11 and you can't get there, Majestica's got some things.
Got it.
But it is not versatile.
Drop this in here.
Yeah, actually, I enjoy the spring chicken on this one because it sounds like people tap dancing.
It is crazy. So not only is this Bartok pizzicato, which I mean, most composers probably know what this is, but just in case, it's when you pull the string off the fingerboard so hard that when you release it, it snaps back and makes like a percussive sound. In this case, like there's that chattering that you get, but I think there's also like a lot of saturation and distortion on the samples as well. Like it sounds distorted to me.
That might have been. Was I not looking out for that? I don't know. No, I mean they're just big, hard, loud things. Yeah. So there was a bunch of other Logic instruments that I couldn't get to work.
Wait, why?
I don't know. If you're out there listening and you know how to make this stuff work, you let me know. So I would load up the smart strings or whatever, and open up the thing, set the articulation to pizzicato, and I'd play it in, and it would be pizzicato. Just channel 1 MIDI. Fine, everything works. Drop in another thing, which is just pure channel 1 MIDI, and it's doing legato. And I could not get it to stick in pizzicato. So I had like 5 other things that I wanted to hear. And when I would record a new thing and it would sound great. I would play it back. It would play back great. I would copy and paste notes from another MIDI file into this MIDI file, and then it automatically dropped them back to non-pits. And I couldn't get it to go, and I couldn't find any references online. So
I wonder if there's like some weird CC message or something that's like changing the articulation.
I don't know. So what's the next one?
Next one, it looks like the Symphonic Orchestra. This is the East-West Quantum Leap Symphonic Orchestra. Am I correct?
Correct. This is the 60-piece.
This is the old school.
This is
pre-Hollywood strings.
This is pre-Hollywood strings. Currently at $400. I think it's pretty solid.
I agree. I think it's very realistic. I like the nuance in the string pluck. There's a lot of character between the different velocity zones. The voices are very clean and present. It's got a very natural sounding to decay. One thing that I remember about the Quantum Leap Orchestra is that it's difficult to dry that out.
Yep.
Like the room sound is the room sound, and you just kind of have to work with that.
It's big and boomy. I wouldn't use this for tight things. I wouldn't use it for pop things unless you're looking for that super wishy-washy, giant, orchestrally big thing. It's hard to make it super distinct, but
I might drop in the Spring Chicken sample here because I think it was a little bit boomy for faster paced stuff. The room sound starts to stack up a bit when you have like a lot of very fast-paced notes and it gets a little bit washy. But it's still not bad, even in that situation.
Yeah, and you've got Composer Cloud, you've got it. It's a solid performer. It sounds good to me. Next up,
Embertone Solo next.
Yep.
All right, yeah, so this is actually not a single sample pack. These are different solo strings that you can purchase from Embertone, which includes the Friedlander violin, the Fischer viola, the Blockus cello, and the Leonid bass. I hope I'm pronouncing that all right because they're all very weird names. They do also have a Joshua Bell violin, but I unfortunately do not own that one at this time. All in, each of the instruments costs about $99, so they'll be about
$400 or $500.
All right, so let's take a listen. So I actually think these sound reasonable.
Yeah, I do like the woodiness of these. They sound like real wood things. I think it's just missing some sparkle on the high end.
Yeah, you could probably do a little bit of sparkle with EQ and then push the velocities a little bit harder. I think I would probably mix the violins up a little bit higher in the mix as well, but I didn't want to mess with that.
Yep.
But I thought it was reasonable for solo strings especially.
Yep, I give it a 7, so it's definitely above average.
Next up is the Spitfire Aperture. And we'll mix that in with a Spitfire pinhole as well. This came as a double pack. I got this for free when I had ordered the Spitfire chamber strings. They were just tossing it in as like an extra.
Yeah.
And apparently you cannot buy it.
I couldn't find it. I don't think you can get these anymore.
They're also all-in-ones, so the entire ensemble comes as a single pack.
Okay.
You cannot isolate the strings. So let's take a listen to Aperture first.
the problem that I have with this is when you start stacking these things together, the room tone piles up, and you can just hear this going in and out. For a freebie, if it's going to be in a mix, like I would definitely not do these things just by themselves, because man, that room tone bothers me.
Let's check out the pinhole. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this one has the same problem as the other one. When you start getting 50 to 100 of these things stacked on top of each other, that room tone on the decay is just piles up, and you can really start hearing it. Again, if you're using it in an ensemble, that'll just disappear. It'll just go away into things. It's fine.
Just cover it up with other instruments. It'll be fine.
Yep. As long as there's something else going on, and you're not doing literally there's decays of 50 samples going on that are adding up to, it's not much, but you can totally hear it compared to the bigger, more expensiver ones.
Yeah, I thought the pinhole was super bass heavy and boomy. And I also got a lot of highs. So it had that disco smile thing going on, but with a huge scoop in it.
Okay.
So I thought the mids were just completely gone. You get the plinkiness and then bass. So I guess if you need to add a sense of pizzicato strings to a track, but you don't actually want to hear them, you just want to kind of know that they're there or feel them, maybe you could use this for that. All right. So next up is one of my personal favorites. And this is kind of the thing that kicked off my obsession with string libraries and the differences between all of them. This is the Spitfire Chamber Orchestra.
You jerk.
I love this. I love this.
You jerk.
Why are you calling me a jerk?
Oh, because these are really good. This has my second highest
really
rating out of all of them, and it's $700. But man, this
they're on sale right now.
Oh, are they?
I think so.
To be fair, almost every one of these libraries goes on sale for up to 50% off.
We were talking to a Spitfire super fan the other day. I guess maybe no names should be mentioned.
Yes, because of the blood feuds.
Because of the blood feuds, right?
Yes.
He was saying that he basically never buys Spitfire instruments unless they're on sale, because they go on sale often enough and at huge discounts. So if you can hold off and wait, you can probably find a really good sale. It's between 30 to maybe 60 or 70% off sometimes.
Yeah.
The reason that I bought these strings was I was in mid project of that Spring Chicken track, and all the string libraries that I had were not cutting it. I could not get anything to sound right. And I heard samples of the chamber orchestra, and I kind of impulse bought it because it was on such a huge sale. And it worked amazingly. So I think for this, we should put the Spring Chicken track in here just to take a listen to that. So yeah, again, I think they do wonderfully with when you're doing the poppy stuff. It's got a really nice presence to it. It's not in your face. They have a nice sense of dynamics between all of them. I love these strings, and their bowed samples are also really good. I can't recommend them enough.
Yep. And I've stayed away from Spitfire. I've picked up a couple of libraries every now and again, and they've never. But man, this one's just solid. All
right, the next one up is Freebie. Anybody can download this for nothing. There's no strings attached.
Ha!
All right, we had a foghorn sample in there, something like that. For that.
All right,
no strings attached. All right, that was on me. This is another all-in-one sample, though. So this is the Spitfire Labs Strings No. 2 Pizzicato Ensemble. And it's the whole ensemble. You cannot isolate the strings again. It's just all-in-one. So let's take a listen to that. Dry.
Super dry.
Dry as a bone.
I mean, and so we're comparing these to other things which are super professionally mixed in big spaces, which if you don't want that, you need something like this.
Right. I actually think that there's some times where for effect work, or if you're doing like a Looney Tunes type thing, or just animation in general, like it just really needs a lot of dry samples a lot of times, unless you're doing these big orchestral things. I think this would be great for that sort of thing. Or you can add your own reverb onto them without having to worry about mixing like an extant room plus the room that you're slapping on it.
Yep.
So potentially usable.
Yeah, there's nothing in the world that can't be fixed with a little more reverb. And then eventually we'll end up just doing shoegazer stuff, and that's great.
Which is also, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But especially for really a free library, I actually think this is quite good. In the faster, more spirited sort of things like the Spring Chicken, it kind of sounded a little dead to me.
Yeah.
That was one critique. But again, it's free, so there's no reason to not have this, I guess.
All right, so next up we've got more Spitfire. Tell me about the difference between the next three.
Yeah, the next three that show. If you buy the Spitfire Studio Strings, it'll come with many different sample sets. So you can get like, let's say the first violins in multiples of 16, which is the large size. And then the violins 2, I think, are 12, so on and so forth. And then the medium violin ones are 8. And the violins 2 are 6. And then for the small ensemble, this is actually a Divisi ensemble. So it's the medium but split in half.
Okay.
And that's so you can play like Divisi parts and have it sound the same size as the medium orchestra. The idea behind the studio strings is this is supposed to be a much drier string subset than any of their other libraries. So there's not supposed to be a lot of room sound, and the idea is that like if you need something really close and intimate, you can do that with these, or it leaves you open to add your own.
Okay, so let's go back to back. Let's start with large. Medium. Small.
Man, I love the attacks on the Spitfire strings in general. They're just so good. Like the chamber and the studio orchestra are just, they sound so good. They're like very real.
Yeah, this is $500 and you'll get all three of those plus more articulations than you need, right? This is not just pits. This is everything.
This is everything. And you can get the professional pack, which I think is what I ended up getting because again, it was on such a ridiculous sale that I was like, well, fuck it, might as well. Okay. But basically with the professional, all you're doing is you're getting more microphones. And my personal opinion is that Spitfire adds a lot more microphones than you probably ever need. Like, I guess I'm sure there are people out there who love them. I've never really found myself needing them as much. In fact, I think with so many options, it starts to become a little bit overwhelming when you're trying to write because it's like, I don't know what's gonna be best for this. Just
I mean, if you're tight for hard drive space and you're working off of a small laptop, maybe not get the professionals. I'm sure that's
And also tight for money because I mean I think the differences between their standard and their professional packs across the board of all their instruments tends to be like anywhere from like $200 to $400.
Yeah, I think there's a $400 difference in these.
Yeah, and to me it doesn't seem like it's worth it to get those extra microphones. But if you have a deep budget or if you really need that flexibility and you think you're actually going to use it, then go for it. Yeah. With the large, I got a lot of slapback echo on that. I don't know if you got that at all, but it seemed like you could hear like a delay and then the sound bouncing back from the room.
Okay. I didn't note it particularly. But anyway, very solid performer. Price performance, this one, the Spitfire Studio, it's better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of conflicting things. Some people thought it was okay. Some people thought it was not very good. I haven't really heard a lot of people like glowing about it. Which begs the question, why did I buy it? I think it was just on sale, and I was like, I should.
You know what? Those sales get you. They do.
They do their job. They're trying to push you into buying stuff, and I'm like, I shouldn't waste the money. And then a couple weeks later, I'll realize that I should have bought them, and now they're twice as expensive, and it's like, I guess that's a non-buyer's remorse.
So again, don't buy anything unless it's on sale.
Right.
Or you really need it. Like, another diversion. Yeah. Jesus. Diversion alert! Diversion alert! Somebody's got, is it 8DO? They have a new steel drums for $49. I'm like, do I need steel drums? I don't have very good steel drums. steel drum, hang drum. Like I really don't have any good ones.
Are they good?
Are these good? I don't know. Do I spend the $50? Ugh.
There is a hang drum, I think, in the Spitfire Labs for free.
Oh, okay. But what if I want to do like Happy Island music? That's not really hang drum. That's
more mellow
really
sounding.
More steel drum, mallet action. As you know, as the owner and operator of a tiki bar in my house, steel drums come up more often than you'd think.
I actually can't believe that that's not in your percussion tree yet. I think we're going to need to have like a Kevin's shitty real instrument corner update at some point with steel drums.
Believe me,
Steel pan.
I've looked into them. They come in two varieties. One is like, you know, the $100 to $200 range that you can like pick up at your local guitar center, and then the just thousands. Just thousands for authentic.
Yeah.
Well, it's like,
Which is weird. I thought that these instruments were initially created like basically out of garbage cans, and they're like made by impoverished people.
Yep.
I mean, maybe I might be misremembering that story.
Nope,
but
you're right.
So it's always really weird. It's like when you find a place that sells like boutique burritos or something, and I'm like, there was a place in Brooklyn that was trying to sell, I think, a burrito for like over $20. I was like, why? Like this is street food.
Yeah.
It is awesome, delicious street food. But one of the reasons that we love it is because it's simple and inexpensive and absolutely delicious.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, if you want to be like the best steel pan player in the world, you get one that's because there's so many different steels that they like. The ones that are made out of the stainless steel, you can play them a lot louder before the notes start to crack. But sometimes you want that crack, right?
Yeah. It's part of the sound.
It's part of the sound. And like, is it better to have, I mean,
well, and how loud do you need to play in your house? Like, I feel like if you're recording that, you're not playing live. You don't have to like cut through an ensemble.
That's true. I don't know. Well, maybe I'll have some steel drums by next week. Back on track. The next one, these recordings, these ones pissed me off.
This is the one that broke you, huh?
So
this is the Spitfire Full Symphonic Orchestra. This is their large ensemble for like just typical classic large orchestral works. Yeah, it is good. I love, again, Spitfire does a really good job of grabbing attacks on notes. Like that edge on the plucks is so believable.
Everything about there was nothing that said this is electronic in any aspect of this one. This one,
yeah, I can hear like the fingers on the strings is there.
Yeah.
Like there's like this sense of woodiness, but it's not so much that it sounds like the mics are too close. Because with an ensemble this large, you have to imagine that there's space. Like, first of all, for the room to be big enough to record this type of ensemble, there's going to be reverberations. So if the sound is too dry, it just doesn't sound natural at all. Like you'll never hear this ensemble in that situation. So, but I think you get like enough of the wood sound so it feels like an orchestra, but not so much that it synthesizes it. It sounds good.
Yeah. And so after I went through and rated all these, I went through and found out like how much did they cost? What do they typically go? And this is the most expensive sample in the batch. This is at $800.
It's still less than the Hollywood strings were initially.
Oh yeah. But the Hollywood strings have come down.
These strings also go on sale, and there's 3 different tiers. I think there's like the intro, there's the medium, and the heaviest professional, whatever. Yeah. Again, I would advocate for getting like the medium tier. I think it's the best bang for your buck.
All right.
So that's our shootout. It's probably not as comprehensive as we could have made it, but making it within attention spans that anybody would actually care about.
All right,
it's what we can do.
What we're gonna do. And I'm gonna give you the quick Kevin takeaway of my favorites of this batch. We have the one we just heard, the Spitfire Symphonic, coming in at $800, absolutely gorgeous. Cinesamples, CineStrings Core coming in at $500. Man, also real nice. And my sleeper. Just the Logic built-in one. I didn't rate it very heavily, but man, for free, wow. It was better than, and you throw some reverb on that, you throw some EQ on that, you can really liven that up. And
it's always really
so
surprising.
good.
Like I never spend any time with the Logic stock instruments ever because I just assume that they're crap.
Yeah, they used to be.
And well, I think that's when I tried them. Is like when I was first getting into it and I didn't have anything else.
That's all for this week. I'm pretty tired. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, we had like other stuff planned, but I think this one ended up being so long that it was just like
I knew it was going to be super
we can't
long.
do anymore. So okay, well, cue the outro music. Thank you for joining us for our first shootout / maybe second sample rant. If you have any suggestions, comments, critiques, questions, or things that you would like us to address on this podcast, please feel free to contact us at composerish@gmail.com. Until next time, keep on writing.